What's going on, FA Nation? My name is Justin Fensterman, along once again with Ryan Hallam, and it's Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. They can't get enough of us, Ryan. We equal ratings.
I can't get enough of us either, so it all works out. This is the best every Friday with Fensty. I can't beat it. This is it. This is the best way to end the week.
Yes, one of the nicest guys I've ever met in the industry, along with our producer, Matt Sells, as well. Yes, Ryan, it is you. I know, hot take, right? No, Ryan, you are one of the nicest guys I've ever met, always been supportive, and that's why it always gets me very, very pumped when I get to work with you on Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk here. And Ryan, let's talk about something that we actually covered a bit on our podcast on the site Family Times, which will be dropping soon with you, me, Matt Sells, that we talked about Superflex. And I didn't know what your favorite kind of league is. And I'm not a huge Superflex guy. I'm not against it. I prefer with my leagues one quarterback starting. However, you expressed that you liked Superflex. Now, you can tell me if I didn't hear correctly, but did you say when we talked that you liked Superflex better than two quarterbacks starting? Did you say that last night?
I did, and it's a different strategy to me between the two, because two quarterbacks, you absolutely have to play two quarterbacks. Superflex, it's an option. You don't have to. If you have two good enough ones, it certainly helps you and makes sense. But sometimes, you miss the draft, not miss the draft like you weren't there, but misread the room, and you end up with your second quarterback being someone that maybe isn't such a great idea, that maybe isn't going to score more points than your third wide receiver. So I think the Superflex is a little bit better strategy. This is, and I've come to like them more really over the past couple of years than before. I've been playing in them for a decent amount of time, but I've really started to be more drawn to them, I'd say, between last year and this year.
Yeah, so just very quickly, for those that might be even new to fantasy football and fantasyalarm.com, Superflex leagues, where you can start up to two quarterbacks. You can start in your flex. There are some leagues out there that have two flexes, one of them being a Superflex, the other one just normal flex, so you can't start three. My problem with Superflex, Hallam, is that I feel that, let's just say one of your quarterbacks goes down. The waiver wire is just so thin. And while you can say there's always something on the waiver wire, if I'm in a Superflex draft, I feel like I'm forced to take, at minimum, three quarterbacks, especially this year, Hallam, because we can't stop talking about COVID-19, because we're seeing what it's doing to the MLB, likely to happen to the NFL. And I'm not being a pessimist. We all have to be prepared for something to happen to some of our players on our fantasy teams. Ryan, if two of my quarterbacks go down, I could be screwed, man. There's not going to be anything on the waiver wire.
Oh, absolutely. You're almost definitely going to be screwed, which I think, this year is certainly different than any other year. We're learning that in baseball right now. I run one league, and I have someone who's messaging me like almost every day, please add more roster spots. Please add more. I'm not going to do it now that the season started. It sucks, but we're all in the same boat. So this is certainly unprecedented times. But I mean, if two guys go down, their backups are available. I mean, clearly they're not going to be as good unless it's like Andy Dalton or something like that. But it's just, I don't know. I don't know that I can go away from an entire format because of this year. It's just, there's so much more to it. And yes, the waiver wire does stink, but that makes the draft a little more important. I know last week we talked about in-season management versus drafts when we were talking about the auction last week, and I had said that I thought in-season management was like 70-30 or 60-40. In a Superflex league, it's a little more than that from the quarterback position. Obviously, you need to get yourself at least two, usually three, solid quarterbacks, because in the right scenario, you'd always like to have that quarterback in that super flex spot. Again, if it's Dwayne Haskins, if it's whoever quarterbacks the Bears, maybe that's not going to be your best option. Maybe, you've hit a gem in the 12th round at wide receiver or running back that you're going to have more confidence in your flex than some crappy end of the draft quarterback. So it's not always necessary to have three, but it is nice.
So I'm going to ask you this, Ryan, because something that you also said, you don't necessarily have to start that second quarterback. I don't hear that a lot. I really don't. I mean, maybe you stack your running backs and then you have just amazing running backs, and you can, in that flex, that super flex, start the running back. So when I hear you say that, it makes me assume, and I know what happens when you assume, but it makes me assume, Hallam, that you're not prioritizing quarterback as much during your draft if you're already thinking you don't necessarily have to start two. Because my mindset is, when I'm in super flex leagues, at least for the first few weeks, until I'm in a position where I'm not getting much production and it's proven from my second quarterback, I'm starting both quarterbacks until proven otherwise.
When you assume, it makes an ass out of you and our producer Matt Sells. But no, and then maybe it's coming across wrong. I'm not saying, of course, you want to have two, and I will absolutely take a quarterback in the first probably 2 rounds of a super flex, where I would never do that really in a regular draft. I just wait a little longer for my second. I'm not going to go bang bang, the first 2 rounds of quarterbacks. I guess if I picked Mahomes in the first round and Lamar Jackson is sitting there in the second round, I would twist my arm. I might go there.
Wow.
But I like to. Wide receiver is so deep. Of course, you're gonna hurt yourself at running back that way. But there's so many wide receivers. You can wait 5 rounds and start picking wide receivers. It's still a pretty good team.
Even if you're starting 3 wide receivers in this super flex draft league.
It's not going to be the best. And I know you're a guy who likes to draft some wide receivers early. They're not going to be as good as yours, but they're going to be comparable, and they're going to be competitive. And of all the positions, well, I guess running back is also good on the waiver wire, but there's always receivers that pop up during the year as well. Again, I'm not saying I generally take 2. I generally take 2 in the first 8 rounds. I'd say I like my second one, maybe 6 rounds. I love like a Daniel Jones as my second. I don't want a bum as my second. I want a pretty good second quarterback where I feel pretty good. That way, if my first guy does go down, I'm still okay. And then if I have to start a wide receiver in my flex, I'm not dead. But if you are starting a super flex, you got to have 2 flexes. You got to have the super flex, and you got to keep that other flex in play. Make that starting roster a little bit deeper, and give it some bump to the people who do their homework and find the gems late.
So let's just say 3 wide receivers starting, 2 flexes, one of them being a super flex. What are you doing for your bench? And this is a good example that you're about to set for everybody that might be setting up a super flex league for the first time ever. Because again, and I hate bringing this up, but COVID, and you don't want the waiver wire. It's one thing with quarterback, but all positions to be super thin. How big is your bench going to be, and how many IR or COVID spots are you going to have along with those bench spots?
This year it might make it a little bit different. If you normally have 5 bench spots, maybe make it 7. If you usually have 1 IL spot, make it 3. I think it's definitely important. We're learning in baseball to give yourself a little bit of leeway, because chances are, and hopefully not, it's going to be a little crazy this year. We'll see. And baseball seemed to be calming down. Last night in the podcast, I just said, well, it was these 2 incidences, and now it's getting better. And then today, of course, comes out the Cardinals have some more positive tests.
Right.
Football's challenge is going to be 2 things to me. 1, they're traveling, and 2, you touch each other. There's no way around it.
It's a lot of guys.
A lot of guys. Yeah, it's a lot of people that need to keep personal responsibilities during this. And unlike baseball, there's no way of not touching the other team. So I hope that they build some extra weeks into the schedule. I know they don't need the Super Bowl to be that first weekend in February, because I have a feeling we're going to have some games pushed back, which is going to make fantasy probably an utter disaster. But it's fun in a whole new way.
To me, you have 2 options, and this is in any fantasy football league. You either make the benches really big, or you make the benches smaller and add IR spots, a few more IR spots. I just feel like, Ryan, especially if you're in a 12-team or 14-team league, especially with what we just talked about with the setup of 3 wide receivers starting and 2 flexes, with one of those being a super flex, you have to go one or the other. You can't go crazy and go 10 bench spots, 3 IR/COVID spots. There's literally going to be nothing left on that waiver wire. So when it doesn't matter either way, because you're either hoarding them on your bench, these players, or you're putting them on the spots. It's the same thing. And I just don't want everybody who's now going to be rushing to set up their fantasy football leagues to just say, oh, we got to have the COVID spots. You must check the default rankings. You must check the default settings in these leagues Because if you don't, you could be ending up with too many spots, and that's going to ruin waivers, Ryan. Ruin them.
This is going to be just like no other year. And I'm hopeful that I'm not very hopeful that things will be calm for the NFL. Hopefully they've learned some lessons from the other leagues, taking what's good from the NBA and the NHL and taking what's bad from MLB and put it all together, and hopefully we'll get some sort of plan. But 53 guys on a team times 32 teams, it's a lot of people. And you only need one, as we've learned, to make big problems. So yeah, waivers are certainly going to be tough. I think we're going to see some guys who we're not even thinking about right now, certainly having an impact. And all you can do is roll with it, man. That's all you can do is work with the situation in front of you and do the best you can.
You mentioned bums before. You don't want a bum as your second quarterback. Who are some of those bums? Let's call out some players here. Let's get down and dirty. It's a Friday. Let's call out some bums, because for me, Ryan, and I feel like the industry very split on someone like Joe Burrow. You mentioned Daniel Jones. I have one league where I have the combination, and I believe it's my Scott Fish Bowl draft that I was in, which is Superflex with the tight end bonus. I have Daniel Jones and Joe Burrow. I picked them very, very close together. I felt like I had to because I didn't want to go to bum territory. What do you think about that QB combo?
I like that combo. I think Burrow, even without the preseason, which is going to be a challenge, I still like Burrow around that quarterback 14 to 17 area. I think he's going to have a pretty good season. AJ Green should be healthy. Tyler Boyd is a heck of a wide receiver. They have a decent running game, which should keep the defense, from just pinning their ears back and come after the kid. And he threw like 59 touchdowns last year. Like, I know it's going to be an adjustment for him, but I think he's going to be okay. I think he's clearly going to be the best rookie quarterback. I have no problem with him as my second either. Daniel Jones, I've written articles about him. I like what I saw from him last year. Obviously, he has to stop fumbling, which he does like it's his job. But you have to figure, it's tough coming in as a rookie. I'm going to cut him a little slack there. But yeah, I've drafted him as my first a few times and as my second as many times as I possibly can. I love the talent. I love the team around him. I think Jones is going to be really good. As far as bums, I mentioned Dwayne Haskins. I just didn't like anything that I saw from him last year. I hope that he matures some, but he doesn't have a lot of help around him either. His wide receivers aren't that good. His running game is questionable. Offensive line isn't so great. So I can't say I have a whole lot of faith in Haskins. It doesn't really matter to me who quarterbacks the Bears. Whether
I was about to ask you about them.
Or Mitch Trubisky, the Foles opting out rumors seem to have not come to fruition. I'll feel a little better if it's Foles, but I really don't like either one. They are my Scott Fish Bowl quarterback 3 and 4 because I didn't know which one it was. And
no, it's smart. Why not? You have the space.
Yeah. As my third, okay, but not nobody that I'm really excited about having on my roster at all. I don't really want Kirk Cousins. He doesn't excite me at all. He throws for some yards, not a lot of touchdowns. He just lost Stephon Diggs. They run a lot. I know they drafted Justin Jefferson, but I think a rookie's going to have a really hard time replacing Stephon Diggs. I'm not really big on him. Trying to think if anyone else comes to mind the top of my head.
You want me to start just naming quarterbacks?
Tee it up.
Quarterback. All right, dude, I'll just tee him up for you. Teddy Bridgewater.
Bum. I see some people liking him, and I don't understand. If they didn't watch him in the Saints last year, he was 4-0. But, bro, he had one decent fantasy game. The other games, it was like 175 yards and 1 touchdown. That's not fantasy relevant. I know DJ Moore is nice, and I picked DJ Moore. Curtis Samuel isn't any good. They have unproven tight ends. Christian McCaffrey.
And by the way, good luck reaching Robbie Anderson if you're Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah.
I'll say this, Teddy, if you're watching Teddy, he runs a lot of deep routes. Good luck with that.
Yeah, he's got a cupcake arm. I consider him a fantasy bum. Is he a nice game manager / okay quarterback? Sure, they'll win a few games. But fantasy wise, yes, Teddy Bridgewater bum.
What about Sam Darnold from the Jets?
He was coming to my mind. I don't think he's a bum. I wouldn't be very happy with him being my second quarterback though. Like that would be I really waited. He has some interception problems too. His weapons I know they went out and got a couple more, but are you excited about Rashad Perryman? Because I can't say that I really am.
I mean, I kind of am, and only because there are not that many weapons on the Jets. So I am kind of, and the draft value right now for him is incredible. Same with Jamison Crowder as well. Much more excited for Crowder, but I like them both. I don't mind having one of the two. My problem with Sam Darnold at this point is in the last 2 years. I mean, 2 years ago, he was hurt. The ankle definitely hurt. The ankle, the foot hurt for a number of games. Last year, mono. And I hate giving him a pass. I'm giving him a pass. But, dude, stop hating out the colleges, man. Like, mono, my roommate freshman year got mono in college, man. I was shocked, and I was like, same old Jets. That's just how it goes. So I'm giving him another pass. Is he an active target of mine? Absolutely not. But all else fails and I have to go with him, I'm stuck with him. And that's why you guys out there have to decide how you're handling the quarterback situation. How long are you going to wait? What about your guy, Jimmy Garoppolo?
I love him as the two. Everybody they look at the end of the playoffs where he threw the ball like 15 times against the Vikings. He threw like 8 against the Packers. But that neither team could stop the running game. So why throw it? I mean, they just pounded it down both those teams' throats, and then there was no sense of throwing the ball. And everyone, ever since then, everyone's like, "Oh, Jimmy can't do it. He can't throw the ball." Dude had 27 touchdowns last year. That was like 5th or 6th best in the league. Are they a run-first team? Yes. Is his best receiver hurt? Absolutely. But Kyle Shanahan is a fantastic, play caller. I think he's going to be good again in year 2. Do I think he's a stud? Do I think he's a 1? Absolutely not. But I'm comfortable with him as a mid-tier second.
What about, and I think I know the answer to this, but we're just going over it, guys. Anyway, again, if you're just listening in, if you're just watching us here, we're talking about quarterbacks in Superflex that we'd be okay with versus bums for our second quarterback. What about Phillip Rivers?
I got roasted on one of the table that discussion by Mr. Adam Ronis for my like of Phillip Rivers. I think he's going to be fine. He didn't just all of a sudden forget how to quarterback. He has a career of 4,000-yard seasons. Did he throw a lot of interceptions last year? Yes, he did. Did he throw just a lot of them seemingly up for grabs in the worst possible time? Absolutely. He's changed to Indianapolis, where he has one of the best offensive lines in football. They got a good rookie in Michael Pittman. They have a solid running game, a good tight end in Jack Doyle. I think Rivers is going to surprise people. Is he going to be a top 10 quarterback? Probably not. I'd be surprised about that. But if he threw 4,100 yards and 25 touchdowns, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised.
Yeah, I got a couple of shares of Jack Doyle. I was one of those people because I have what's called a fail-safe quarterback, or which I thought last year. This is not in Superflex, but I said if all else fails with my quarterback strategy, I know that I could get Phillip Rivers ultra late, and it burnt me because I had multiple shares of him, Hallam, and that was very, very frustrating. But you have to separate him from the Chargers because now he's in a new situation. You mentioned the offensive line being as great as it is. He'll have some time. T.Y. Hilton, I mean, you know about his health issues. You'll have to at least expect that he'll miss a couple of games. How many? We're not doctors. We're not going to prescribe that. But Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell, so Jack Doyle, who I have a few shares of. Are you a Jack Doyle guy?
As my second, yeah, I wouldn't throw him out there as my number 1, but he is my second tight end in lots of leagues. I think he's going to have a nice bounce back season. Eric Ebron is gone. You get a guy who can throw the ball. Brissett is a nice quarterback, a Teddy Bridgewater-esque. Not a big arm, and they ran the ball a lot. I think they're going to throw more this year with Rivers, with a good quarterback. And, they're not going into the season with their franchise quarterback, retiring it 3 weeks before the season starts this year. So I think the Colts are in for a better season. So Doyle is my second big time. I like it. Not rolling him out there as my number 1, but I think he's got a chance to be a number 1 before the end of the season.
Someone who garnered a lot of attention, and I say that pun intended, Gardner Minshew. What do you think about that? Because let's go back to the FSGA industry drafts. We saw him get drafted, and I believe it was all 4 of those snake drafts. We saw him get drafted as a starting quarterback. And these are leagues with just starting one quarterback. But I was a bit surprised. And then when I saw it happen draft after draft, clearly part of our industry is onto something. Where do you stand on Minshew?
Baffled. I don't understand how you bring this guy in as your starter. It has to be the running, because there's no other reason that you could possibly watch him play and think that he's a starting fantasy quarterback. I mean, he had a couple really good games. And man, I did those game previews for Fantasy Alarm last year, and I loved it. I loved writing about him. I think he's a cool guy. I love the RV at the end of the year with the cutoff, jean shorts and everything. I think he's really good for the NFL. I think he's a cool dude. He's never going to be my starting quarterback. I don't know if I expect him to run for as many yards as he did last year. He got benched at the end of the year. Let's not forget. I know he came in for Nick Foles, but when Foles was healthy again at the end of the year, he did get benched. He had a lot of games with one or no touchdowns. I cannot for the life of me figuring out, unless they're just brought in by the mustache, of where people are seeing him as a top 12 quarterback. Quarterback is so deep. I barely see him in the top 20.
Wow. Well, brought in by the mustache. What about someone who's brought in by the beard? Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I guess we can throw in Tua there as well, because, I'm expecting it's going to be Fitzpatrick at least to start things off. Whether or not Tua makes it in at all, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. The last thing I heard about Tua is that, he's still recovering. I haven't heard too much about it, but let's just say for now, Fitzpatrick as your 2. What do you think about that?
If they hadn't drafted Tua, I would love it. I am worried about him getting pulled towards the end of the season. That's my only hesitation. I really like the guy. I think he's got all kinds of grit. I think very few people on the field try harder than him, or have more fun than him, or come to press conferences dressed better than him. But that whole team just played their asses off last year. I was super impressed. I like the coach, Brian Flores. I think he did a great job. As the team just traded away guys, they just started winning games. And I think some of that started with Fitzpatrick. So I think if he didn't have, maybe the awesome quarterback just waiting in the wings, I think that I would like Fitzpatrick a lot more. But I'm worried come fantasy playoff time or in week 10 that he might be finding his way to the bench, which would really be tragic for your team. So I like him if you're kind of in a pinch, but season long, I'm worried about him.
Hearns and Wilson opting out does not help. Preston Williams, we'll have to see if he's ready to start the season healthy as well. So that's something to take into consideration. What about Jared Goff?
I'm not so bad on Jared Goff. I know a lot of people have just absolutely buried him and think he sucks and his career is over, 2 years removed from the Super Bowl. We all like Robert Woods. We all like Cooper Kupp. They bring in Cam Akers. So they got kind of a 3-headed monster running back. I think he's going to be fine. I don't think he's a top 12. I don't think he's a top 12 guy at all. I think he's like Daniel Jones. He's in that 14 to 17 range. I think he's going to have some monster games. You're going to see a few games from Jared Goff where he's going to go for 425 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then you're going to have the 160 and an interception. I think he's inconsistent, which has taken him out of the conversation for a starting quarterback. But I still think he's far from done. I think he's got a pretty decent season in front of him.
So would you be cool with your 2 quarterbacks being Daniel Jones and Jared Goff?
I'm
putting you on the spot. I know, Hallam. You're sweating.
No, that's fine. Right. No, not cool. I take it. Only because of I feel the upside of Jones is going to carry you. I would like one of those to be somebody better.
Let me bring up someone who's a bit controversial almost, because everybody's got a different opinion. Maybe not even as your QB, your second quarterback, but Aaron Rodgers. Where do you stand? Oh, you're down. No Aaron Rodgers.
I wouldn't touch Aaron Rodgers with a 10-foot pole at his ADP. Take a look at his numbers. We're drafted Aaron Rodgers from 5 years ago. His numbers just keep going down. He has a terrible relationship with the team. It was the deepest wide receiver draft in 5 years. They gave him no one. They bring in Devin Funchess. He opts out. So we're stuck with, Devontae Adams, who's awesome. Marcus Valdez-Scantling. The Geronimo Allison, who sucked last year, he's even gone. He's got no weapons. Everyone likes Jay Sternberger. They never throw to the tight end. He's got Devontae Adams and not much else. These running backs out of the backfield, they're probably going to be your second best wide receiver options in Green Bay. I think Rodgers' skills have diminished. I feel like at times his drive is diminished. I don't see the same guy that we saw a few years ago, where just he was animated, he was into it, he'd do anything to win. I feel like sometimes you see him now, he gets sacked or whatever, and he just sits on the ground, and it's almost like he just is waiting for the game to end. I feel like the Packers are not in for a good offensive season throwing the ball. I have Rodgers outside. I believe I have him as the 18th quarterback in our projections. I think he's in for a rough year.
This guy is just messing with my head, man. I don't know what to think of this guy. I really don't. I mean, because in a situation like this with the Superflex, how far does he have to drop for me to be like, okay, I'll take him at that point, and then maybe I'll take a third quarterback as well in case everything you said does occur. Then I have somebody else. It's just I'm so split with what to do with Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be an in-the-moment decision. He's not an active target of mine. I don't have a single share just yet, but that's been one of the toughest quarterbacks, another tough quarterback for me to decide on, and maybe you can convince me one way or another, whether it's a QB2 and somebody even viewing as their starting quarterback in just one quarterback starting leagues, Baker Mayfield.
I don't know what to think of him. I wrote an article about him also that actually didn't end up getting published. I was doing a quarterback preview. I had the article written about Baker Mayfield, and then Sunday night Cam Newton signed, and I'm like, well, I think John Impemba wrote me. He's like, did you write your quarterback article yet? And I was like, yeah, if I'm doing my job right, I should write about Cam Newton. So I have this article about Baker Mayfield that never made the site.
This is why we have Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. Now you get to cover the non-published article.
Everything is set for him to succeed. If he isn't good this year, then he might as well just pack it in. I mean, they went out and got the best tackle in free agency in Jack Conklin. They went and got the best tight end in free agency in Austin Hooper. They have two dynamite receivers in Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. As much as I hate Odell Beckham, I can't argue with his talent. Kareem Hunt might be the best pass-catching running back in the entire league. And then you have Nick Chubb who can run the ball that keeps the defense honest. So everything is set for Mayfield to succeed. And yet I'm still not confident. I don't like his way. I don't like the vibe around the whole team. The whole team just kind of has the diva feel. Like if things start to go a little bit wrong, they're going to go very wrong. And that's what happened last year. I know Beckham came out with this sports hernia thing, but he seemed awful fine all year long as he got 2 catches for 25 yards 3 times. They're also playing a division with a lot of good defenses. The Ravens are a hell of a defense. The Steelers have one of the best secondaries in football. And the Bengals, they made some improvements. They brought in a couple corners in free agency. So I have drafted Mayfield once as my second. There's no way he's my first. I feel like he should succeed. Will he? I can't say with any confidence that I feel like he will. I think he's right at that 13 to 16 range as far as quarterbacks. But man, I got to be honest. I pulled the trigger once, and I don't feel good about it. But if he doesn't succeed this year, I think his career is going to kind of go into that average land. And that rookie year, I think, is going to kind of just poof and go away.
Welcome to average land. I love that. Oh, man, that sounds like a great idea, Hallam. Look at you. You're a genius.
I live in average land. That's how I know about it.
2 more quarterbacks for you. Number 1, Ben Roethlisberger. Where do you stand?
I'm good with him. He's at the end of the starting quarterbacks for me. I know the Tommy John surgery bothers me a little bit. We don't have like a lot of history of quarterbacks coming back from that. But he's a warrior, man. I know he's has his personal problems, which of course I'm not cool with. But this is we're just talking football here. And he's got some good weapons. Antonio Brown is gone from the last time he was there, but Juju certainly 2 years ago looked like he's ready to be a number 1 receiver. Deontay Johnson and James Washington are certainly looked like viable targets last year, and they brought in Eric Ebron. If they have so many running backs, if James Conner doesn't get hurt, I think they have a shot at a real good offense this year. Ben is pushing 40, but healthy, I think he's going to have a real good year.
GM Kevin Colbert joined Fantasy Alarm with Howard Bender and Jim Bowden months ago and said that he was throwing nicely, very, very well for that matter. All the confidence in the world, starting to see those consistent reports as well. This is why you get to hang with the family. This is why we are your family first or second. We will not take offense. Final quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. Uh-oh, this is like Gladiator. Are you like Commodus or something? Joaquin Phoenix over here?
I'm all right. I not want to mess my first, but I'm okay with it. If he's my super flex, I'm cool with that. I like Tannehill as a super flex option. I don't think quite the magic he caught last year is going to carry over, but he's got AJ Brown is a dynamite receiver, and of course Derrick Henry. I think they're going to run a lot, and after Brown they don't have a lot. Corey Davis sucks. I don't care how many people try to come out and say he's gonna jail this year. I mean, I
laugh at those people.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like they're hoping for the Devontae Parker 8th year breakout, like last year is the only thing that's going to happen because he's not good. So they only really have the one good receiver, which is a bit of a concern. But he makes things happen with his legs as well. I like him better than Minshew. I think again that 14 to 17 range. I like Tannehill. I'm comfortable with him as my 2.
He's Ryan Hallam, and I put him on the spot just like that. What about all of you out there? Let us know at Fantasy Alarm here, at Fighting Chance for Ryan, at Fensty Sports. Let us know who you are cool with as your second quarterback. Why or why not? Anyone that you've heard. We covered a lot of ground here. Ryan, as always, a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining me.
And hopefully we can do it again next Friday.
And this is what we do. We're a part of the family. You're part of our family. Can't spell family without F-A, Fantasy Alarm. We always dominate, putting you in the position to dominate. Why is that? There isn't any other option. We just win.